My name is Malcolm. I'm 27. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said my family wasn't perfect, but they were at least dependable. You know, the kind of family that might argue over holidays or whisper little criticisms behind your back, but when something truly serious happened, they'd show up. I believed that until the night I was rushed into surgery and realized how wrong I was. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. I'd been feeling off for a while, dull stomach pains I brushed off as stress or bad takeout. I worked long hours and didn't always sleep enough, thinking my body was just reminding me I wasn't invincible. That night, the pain hit like a truck. I doubled over in my small Atlanta apartment kitchen, sharp enough that I couldn't even stand. I called an ambulance, panic choking me as I clutched my stomach. The last thought I had before the EMTs loaded me into the back was, at least my mom and dad will come. At least I won't be alone. Surgery wasn't optional. The doctors explained something about an obstruction and internal bleeding. Words blurred under morphine, and I was terrified, but I held on to the idea that my family would be waiting when I woke up, my parents, my sister, maybe even a cousin or two. Except they didn't. When I woke up, groggy and dry-mouthed, I reached for my phone. Not a single missed call before surgery. Not a single text asking if I was okay. My chest tightened, not from the stitches, but from the sinking realization. Nothing. Just silence. It wasn't until the next morning that the flood began. My phone buzzed nonstop. 72 missed calls, mostly from my mother, and one long text simply reading, "We need to talk urgently." Where had she been when I was on the operating table? Where has anyone been? I pieced it together slowly through social media. While I was under anesthesia, my entire family, parents, sister, aunts, uncles, even grandparents, had been at my cousin Tyrone's birthday party. Photos showed them laughing around a cake, drinks in hand, balloons everywhere. My father had his arm around Tyrone, holding up a glass like he was the proudest man alive. My mother commented on one picture, "Family first. Boys. Family first." The words hit me like ice water. I lay in that hospital bed, stitches pulling with every movement, staring at the photos. My phone beeped softly beside me. I wasn't crying, not exactly. It was something worse, numbness settling in my chest like a door closing. They hadn't even checked in until after the party. And even then, it wasn't a concern in their messages. It was guilt poorly disguised as urgency. The nurse came in with a gentle smile, asking if anyone was coming. I opened my mouth, but no words came. They hadn't come because they chose not to. Tyrone's birthday mattered more than me being cut open. That was the first time I let myself replay all the little things I'd brushed off for years, being left stranded after prom because my sister wanted to party, my achievements overshadowed by Tyrone, my mother once telling me, "You'll never shine the way he does, but that's okay. You don't need to." Lying there, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I wasn't a priority. I never had been. And yet the flood of missed calls and messages kept coming. By the time I could sit up, my phone was full of desperate pleas. "Call us back, Malcolm. This isn't how family works. Don't be dramatic. We love you." The audacity made my hands shake. They hadn't come when it mattered. They hadn't even sent flowers. But now they wanted to talk urgently, as if I owed them something. That was when the anger started to bloom, hot and steady, under the numbness. I didn't respond for the first few days. I lay in that sterile hospital room, eating bland soup and jello, scrolling through social media. While I sat with stitches running across my abdomen, my parents were posting photos of the best family night ever, with Tyrone and his friends. My sister wrote, "We always show up for each other. That's what family means." I nearly dropped my phone. Show up for each other. I was in the hospital, stitched like a broken toy, and apparently I didn't count. Discharged after a week, no one came to pick me up. I climbed into an Uber, clutching my bag, hoping to find flowers or food at my apartment. But there was nothing. No note, no gesture, just silence. 2 days later, my mother finally appeared, unannounced, holding a grocery bag of fruit as if that erased everything. "Malcolm," she said with a sigh more like inconvenience than concern. "You should have told us how serious it was. We thought it was minor. Do you know how guilty we all feel?" I stared, I was rushed into emergency surgery. How much more serious could it be? She waved her hand, dismissing it. Honey, we had promised Tyrone we'd be at his birthday. You know how important that was to him. That word, abandoned, made my jaw tighten. You're being harsh. We've always done our best for you. But Tyrone needs us. You're strong. You can handle things on your own. That word had always been their excuse. For me, it meant we didn't have to try. A few days later, my father called. Malcolm, stop making this a big deal. Everyone is upset you're ignoring them. Tyrone thinks you're holding a grudge. He said he tried to call you the night of surgery. I gripped the phone tighter. I was under anesthesia, Dad. His chuckle reminded me how misplaced their priorities were. I realized it wasn't guilt. They were worried about appearances, not me. The next family gathering drove that point home. Tyrone bragged about how everyone came together for his birthday. Best night of my life, he said, clapping my dad on the shoulder. I was quietly ignored while my mother handed me a plate like a guest. Nobody asked about my recovery, nobody mentioned the hospital. My aunt whispered, "Don't sulk, Malcolm." Tyrone's party was months in planning. I swallowed every bitter word, nodding politely, but inside, something shifted. The anger became determination, cold clarity. If they couldn't see what they'd done, if they thought I'd forget, they were wrong. 2 weeks later, I tried to put distance between myself and the family. My stitches were healing, I could walk without wincing, and I was back at work part-time. But then came betrayal. One Wednesday evening, my phone buzzed with a bank alert. Over $4,000 had been withdrawn in a single day. Plane tickets, hotels, luxury restaurants, all under Tyrone's name. At first, I thought it was a fraud. Then I remembered my mother had my spare card for emergencies. My chest tightened. They had used it without permission while I recovered. I called her immediately. "Why is Tyrone using my card?" I asked flatly. She laughed dismissively. "Malcolm, don't make a fuss. Tyrone needed this. You make enough to spare. You wouldn't understand." My throat went dry. I had been alone in the hospital, and they thought it was fine to drain my account. The weekend brought another notification. My father had withdrawn from our joint emergency account. When confronted, he brushed it off. "Family first. You're strong enough to rebuild." Not just the money, but the principle. They left me to face surgery alone, then treated me like a wallet. Sunday dinner brought the final straw. Tyrone bragged about his trip, funded by my money. Everyone applauded. My mother said, "See, Malcolm, this is what family sacrifice is about." Not one word about my surgery, not one about stolen funds. That was the moment something inside me broke. They weren't going to change. They had chosen their golden child, and I was nothing but a convenient afterthought. I smiled through dinner, nodding at their empty words, but inside, I vowed to take control. After that dinner, I returned home, hollow, yet planning. Weeks later, I reclaimed what was mine. I contacted the bank, demanded accountability, filed complaints, and kept meticulous records, screenshots, statements, receipts. Persistence became my weapon. Work also shifted. My manager noticed how I handled extra shifts without complaint, offering me a training opportunity for a supervisory role. Paychecks went toward repairing my finances. I cut unnecessary spending and rebuilt my independence. Silence from my family gave me room to breathe. I rediscovered myself, running in the mornings, reading, joining local groups. The absence of my family was a relief. I wasn't the strong one anymore. I was simply myself, and that was enough. An opportunity came, a business venture seeking someone organized and detail-oriented. I hesitated, still clawing out of debt, but took the leap. Hard work left me exhausted but fulfilled. Contributions were recognized. Within 6 months, the venture turned a profit, and I held equity. My family thought I was barely scraping by. Their comments were snide, especially Tyrone's. But I smiled, nodded, letting them believe it. The less they knew, the more power I had. I had built a life without them, brick by brick. A year after surgery, I attended a family reunion. Tyrone boasted about a fraudulent startup, My father's sloppy finances were traceable, and my mother obsessed over appearances. They were handing me leverage without knowing it. I confronted them publicly, presenting evidence of fraud and stolen money. Chaos erupted. Tyrone's empire collapsed. My father was cornered by his own negligence. My mother clung to denial, begging me to erase the truth, but I said only, "Now you know what it feels like." My life moved forward. The business venture thrived. My finances were stable, and I no longer feared betrayal. Revenge wasn't loud. It was standing tall, walking away with my head high, unforgettable to those who once underestimated me.